This is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Businessweek Daily with Carol Massar and Tim Stenivek, live on Bloomberg Radio, television, and Bloomberg Originals.
All right, everybody. Yes, indeed. This is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily across Bloomberg platforms. Carol Massar, Tim Stenivek live at Bloomberg headquarters in New York City. And man, we are getting ready to wrap up the second quarter, the first half. We've got one more trading day tomorrow, but it is a holiday shortened trading week that I feel like is kind of packed with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we got jobs coming later this week. Also, have you seen quarter to date?
What?
How things are looking?
How is it?
I mean, the S&P 500 up 14% this quarter. And again, we have another day to go.
Not too
A
shabby.
lot can happen between now and tomorrow.
Right.
The NASDAQ Composite up more than 19%.
Not too shabby. But let's remind everybody.
It's pretty much the depths of
We've seen markets bouncing around, a fair amount of volatility. So we got a lot to talk about on this Monday. We've also got Alphabet replacing Verizon Communications in the Dow. I know everybody doesn't watch the Dow, but nonetheless, it's interesting to see how that index continues to change. And we got some news about SpaceX going into the NASDAQ. Was it July 7th, I think? Not news, but nonetheless, it's all happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion leading into that about how the NASDAQ might change its parameters to make an exception for SpaceX. So keep an eye on that one.
All right. The other thing we've been keeping an eye on is what the Supreme Court has been up to. Fed Governor Lisa Cook safe for now. Good news for the Fed's independence, and yet other agencies not so much. So we're going to get into what you need to know about the Supreme Court decisions and really talk about Fed independence, and maybe we'll sneak in a little bit about that jobs report on Thursday.
All right. Also, the former governor of Indiana, Eric Holcomb, is stopping by, talking about AI's impact on U.S. jobs and on the political backdrop. He is working to make it so that Americans are prepared for the AI revolution.
And working with a Democrat. Yeah, it actually can happen in this environment. Also, we're going to get a read on the consumer with Cynthia Chen. She's the CEO of Kikoff. It's a credit building platform. I feel like it's a little bit of a personal story, so we'll get into that a little bit later on.
All that and more over the next hour right here on Bloomberg Businessweek Daily. First up, though, check of the day's trade and top business stories. He is back. We're talking about Charlie Pellet.
All right, thank you very much, Tim. And here's what's going on. We have got the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all advancing. We'll throw in the NASDAQ 100 index. That is key. Interestingly, though, on an update from much of the market, the Russell 2000 index of small cap shares is declining. The Russell 2000 down 0.3%. But right to the numbers here, NASDAQ 100 index surging 2.1%. We've got the NASDAQ Composite index up 1.8%. And on this penultimate day for the quarter, we do have the S&P 500 index up 1.1%. Dow Industrials up by about 0.7%. Mag 7 index, the Bloomberg Mag 7 index, certainly the standout today, surging 2.5%. All of this with the SOX advancing 3.6%. The VIX below 18 at a 10-year 4.37%. Gold down $66 the ounce. Spot gold down 1.6%, $4,021 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.4%, $70.91 a barrel on WTI. Brent up 1.7%, $73.19. And Bitcoin back above 60,000, up now by 1.2%. Tim, a harrowing story you and I were just talking about in the newsroom. JetBlue Airways pilot reported that his plane hit a drone while landing at JFK in New York this morning. It's an incident that comes only days after the crew of a separate flight said it spotted a drone on approach to a nearby airport. Right now we do have JetBlue shares. They are trading lower, part of a broader airline decline today. JetBlue down now by 3.8%. The airline's declining along with the price of oil advancing. Again, WTI up now by 2.4%. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcast. I'm Charlie Pellet. Tim and Carol, that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, welcome back, Charlie Pellet. Good to have you here. All right, let's get going. A lot on this, what I thought would be a quiet Monday as we get ready to head towards the July 4th holiday. All right, the Supreme Court refusing to let President Trump immediately fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook in a case that tested the central bank's independence from the White House. Voting 5-4, the High Court said that Lisa Cook can stay in her job while she fights President Trump's bid to oust her over unproven mortgage fraud allegations. There was that, Tim.
At the same time, a divided U.S. Supreme Court expanded the president's power to fire top government officials. It was a blockbuster decision, and it puts the White House firmly in control of potentially dozens of agencies that have long operated independently. We have got a great duo to help us unpack it all.
Let's get to it. Mike McKee is with us. He's Bloomberg TV and Radio international economics and policy correspondent, and June Grasso, Bloomberg legal analyst and host of Bloomberg Law. You can catch that on Bloomberg Radio every evening. June, let's start with you. The SCOTUS ruling re Lisa Cook. Legally, are Lisa Cook's problems over? I mean, what do we need to know here?
No. In fact, President Trump already said that they're going to move forward. So this is a temporary thing for Lisa Cook. The basic thing is the Supreme Court said she didn't get process, she didn't get due process, and so that has to be in place. The opinion is really sort of vague about what exactly would constitute cause for firing her. So what could happen is President Trump could start this whole thing over again, give her notice and a hearing, and then we'd be back in the same place, basically. So we'd see, the Supreme Court might take it up again, and then you'd see what would cause be.
So, Mike, what does it all mean for the independence of the Fed?
Well, it sort of takes the pressure off for the moment until the president comes back and tries to do whatever he's going to do, which we assume he will do, given his desire to punish his enemies. But it doesn't really, the court, as June said, was very vague in talking about central bank independence. John Roberts said that the central bank should be immune from political pressures, but he didn't say must. And so that's the undecided part of this. He had a very long exposition about why the Fed should be independent. It's a historical artifact. It protects the money supply, things like that. But he didn't say that there is a constitutionally grounded reason why the president can't fire anybody except for cause. And as June said, they didn't define what cause is. So this certainly could come back. And it doesn't really change the status of Jay Powell, which a lot of people are wondering about, because although the president would have to have cause to fire him, he could go through the same thing. And Powell isn't going to quit yet because we're still waiting on the Inspector General's report on the modifications of the Fed buildings. So it doesn't change a whole lot, except that Lisa Cook can probably breathe a little easier for a while.
So, June, why did Justice Roberts say, basically leave the door open a little bit in terms of the ability for President Trump to get rid of a Fed governor? Is there anything in the way they did it or precedents or?
They like to do narrow opinions.
Okay.
Because then they don't have to go out on the big issue, right? So he actually said this is a narrow opinion. And, that is what they do repeatedly, except in the Slaughter case where they just blew everything wide open.
We'll go remind us what that case is.
Okay, so Rebecca Slaughter, an FTC commissioner, and she was fired without cause. The law says there are certain reasons you can be fired, but President Trump fired her without cause, and the Supreme Court said, that's okay. Basically, that's okay for her and all the federal regulators. That's okay for all the heads of the agencies. And you're talking about the agencies that decide everything from air traffic control safety to consumer product regulations, environment, labor, all those agencies. The president can fire the federal officials in charge of them without any cause.
Why is that different from a Fed chair or a Fed?
They carved out an exception for the Federal Reserve, which, a lot of people, a lot of the people that I've spoken to, the constitutional law professors say that, the Supreme Court has been going back into history. What would the founders have said? And they said that, the conservatives said, the founders said that in that time, the president had the authority to fire federal officials at will. But people that I've spoken to said that's not the weight of history. That's the problem with their historical test. So why? Because the Fed's an exception.
And the exception basically was, at least as the way John Roberts constructed it, is that the Fed is a quasi-public institution, that there are 12 central bank, regional Federal Reserve banks that are owned by the banks in their region, and that the officials are appointed by the regional boards of directors of these banks. And so the Fed as an overall entity is not the same as these independent agencies that are under the president.
Is it just the Fed, June?
Yeah,
or is there
the
anything
Fed.
else that's included in
It's
there?
just the Fed.
And that's why
you
the slaughter case is so significant.
And that's why you had a 5-4 in the Fed case, Lisa Cook case, and you had 6-3 in the slaughter case. So, I mean, they have basically been cutting back on it all along.
I mean, this again, it's getting at the same question that you guys were just talking about, but I think that a lot of people watching might say, wait a second, what is different about the Fed versus these other agencies? And yes, there is the historical independence, but couldn't you make that argument for other federal entities?
Yes, you could make that argument, and many people do make that argument. And in fact, Justice Sotomayor said that she talked about the decision. This is in the slaughter case, the 6-3 case. And she said, today this court undoes centuries of political practice and concludes that all three branches of government have been acting in open defiance of the Constitution all this time. So obviously the three, the dissents are getting more and more, spicier and spicier, more and more heated. And when they go to the bench, also, I mean, there was an incident last week where Justice Sotomayor apparently was really coming down on the Alito opinion about the immigration, the temporary protected status, really talking about things that if this had been back in the Nazi era, that people who had been on a boat coming here would have been into concentration camps. It really took Alito by surprise, and so things are getting down to the wire here. It looks like there's problems.
Well, and Mike, I want to bring you back in this idea of presidential power expanded, though. How do you think about that still? He's not bashful, this president, about still going after the Fed or a Fed chair. I mean, should we assume that maybe the independence is safe for now, but it doesn't mean it's free from attacks?
Oh, it certainly doesn't mean it's free from attack. We've seen in other cases, the Comey case in particular, that the president is going to go wherever he needs to go to punish his enemies. And Lisa Cook would fall under that category now because she defeated him in court. Jay Powell would fall under that category. So I fully would expect the president to try to do something else. I mean, he's got a lot on his plate right now, but there always seems to be time for revenge. So the question of whether she would be ousted or not is going to be an interesting one, because the court said she can stay until the case is adjudicated. But it didn't say that there needs to be a conviction or anything like that. It's just while the case proceeds. So if they refile something, in theory, she can stay until there's a decision. And the good thing for her is that right now we've got about 2 years left in the president's term. So the wheels of justice move very slowly, and one can imagine that the clock would run out on this possibly before they could get her out under the pretext.
But for normal people, this stuff can be very expensive.
Yes.
And I'm curious from a personal perspective how the folks who find themselves in the crosshairs of the president, do taxpayers front this? Does the Fed pay for this? Like, how does this work?
Well, it depends on the case. In the case of Jay Powell, because it was about the Fed buildings, the Fed is able to partially pay for the defense in that case. For Lisa Cook, it's on her own, and she has had some not free press, but
Pro bono or?
Pro bono kind
Ish.
of, foundations basically who are in favor of less government intrusion, help pay for it.
But this was activity before she was even a Fed governor,
This was
correct?
before she was a Fed governor.
Yeah.
And then anybody else who gets fired, like Ms. Slaughter, they're on their own basically
Millions.
as well.
I mean, you're talking millions of dollars in some of these cases. And that's the whole thing about the revenge thing, is that you don't necessarily have to get a conviction to get revenge on someone. You put them through the legal process. Look at Comey. He's still going through it.
Yeah,
That case
it's
is
a legal
going
or
forward.
financial squeeze.
Yeah.
Hey, June, before we start to wrap up, the U.S. Supreme Court also ruled that federal law permits mail-in ballots to arrive after Election Day in a decision that preserves grace periods in 30 states. Significance of this one?
That was the only surprise today, actually. We both expected what was happening in Slaughter and Cook, but this was a surprise because Republicans had been pushing, as you know, President Trump is always against mail-in ballots, and this was allowing them to be counted afterwards. So it was a surprise that this majority, which was cobbled together with Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett with the liberals, said that it's okay it would have affected something like 30 states if they had said it's not okay that you have to have them in by election day. It would have just been chaos.
So a win for the American voter?
Yes, I think so.
Well, interesting, narrow decision again, even though it was a surprise. And it goes to what June said about what John Roberts has held, that if we don't have to decide something, we won't. This case...
It's true.
This
it's
case
so true.
It's like a toddler decision.
Yeah.
I won't do it, I won't do it.
Yeah.
This case turned on the definition of a day.
Yeah.
Because there's a federal law that says election day has to be the same day in all states. Federal elections have to be the same day in all states. And the Mississippi law said as long as it's postmarked by election day, and the court said, well, that's okay then, because they voted on election day. It's just the counting that comes later. So it was just a choice of words. You could still have a case come back, and they did not, put it this way, they did not decide who runs the elections. This one didn't turn on the constitutional power of the states to run elections.
What are you thinking there?
I'm
Mr.
thinking
Stenbeck?
I'm thinking a lot about the other economic data that we have coming this week.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that.
That's a way to get out of the
June
Supreme
is
Court.
working, Mike's working, we're working.
Yeah, well, you'll have her back. We got Birthright Citizenship
That's
tomorrow.
true.
Oh, is
There's
that
still-
still- is that
don't
still
go too
coming?
far. June.
Transgender women in sports.
Well, so what are, just before you go, June, what are the, we have no idea what they're going to
What
rule.
we do know is that Chief Justice Roberts will be writing the opinion in Birthright, Citizenship, whatever it is. But we expect that because he saves, you notice that he saves the big opinions for himself? Have you noticed the trend
Well, that's
here?
tradition, yeah.
Not so much. Not with every Chief Justice. Not with every Chief Justice. It's his tradition, that's for sure. So we're expecting that Birthright, Citizenship, that Trump's executive order will be struck down, declared unconstitutional, whatever, and that a majority of the justices will say we've had Birthright, Citizenship, and the language matches here, and under the jurisdiction, blah, blah, blah. The case has been on for 100 years now. So that's expected. And on the transgender women in sports, we're expecting that they're going to uphold those by a 6-3 vote, I'm betting. Those laws against having transgender women in women's and girls sporting teams.
You talk to parents of women in sports, and you get some pretty heated views on that.
On both sides, yeah.
Mike, how heated is it for the U.S. jobs report this week?
Oh, I like
Sorry.
that.
It's a good transition.
As Tom Keene would say, a segue.
That's a QE.
It is going to matter because at this point, you have gasoline prices going down, you have oil prices going down. We don't know if it's going to last,
right?
But that's what's happening. So the administration can make the point that the Fed should lower interest rates or should at least not raise interest rates because the economy is in good shape. And if the jobs report comes in strong, then that would suggest that the economy is strong and
you don't need to cut
No,
rates.
you might need to because the economy is stronger than they anticipated, and that could lead to inflation. The number to
you
watch.
mean raise rates?
Yeah, raise rates.
Yeah.
The number to watch is the average hourly earnings because over the last 2 months we've seen earnings fall below the rate of inflation. So you're losing ground right now. If they start to pick up again, then the Fed's going to worry about that leading to more inflation going forward.
We've actually had guests come on talking about wage inflation and concerns about the pressure that will put on Fed. So we'll see what happens. Guys, thank you so much. All the stuff we need to know in terms
Don't
of...
forget it's Jobs Thursday this week, not Jobs Friday.
Yeah, if you show up on
Supreme
Friday,
Court, the
you're going
last
to be a
day
little lonely.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Let me just put in a plug for the Supreme Court. The last day tomorrow.
Yeah, we're all
Maybe
very
we
excited about that.
Yeah.
We can reprise this tomorrow.
It's amazing how they get, nothing like a deadline, get stuff done.
July 4th is coming up. You know?
We all know. Mike McKee, Bloomberg TV and Radio International Economics and Policy Correspondent. June Grasso, Bloomberg Legal Analyst and host of Bloomberg Law. Catch it on Bloomberg Radio. Speaking of jobs, our next guest, a former governor of Indiana, on a program, a nonprofit, when it comes to addressing AI and its impact on the workforce. That's coming up next. Stick around.
It's 2:21 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all advancing. Dow at a record. S&P 500 index right now very close to session highs. Right to the numbers here with the S&P now at 74.31, up 78. That is a gain of 1.1%. We are in the final stretch of what is set to be the best quarter for the S&P 500 in 6 years. Dow Industrials up 354 now, up 0.7%. NASDAQ up 1.8%. NASDAQ 100 index up 2.1%. Not all stocks are rallying. The Russell 2000 index of small cap shares slumping by 0.3%. But the Bloomberg Mag 7 index ripping higher by 2.4%. All of this with the VIX below 18 and a 10-year at 4.37%. Gold is down $64 the ounce to $4,024. Spot gold down 1.6%. West Texas Intermediate crude $70.57 a barrel. WTI up now by 1.9%. And Bitcoin back above $60,000. 60,363. Bitcoin up now by 1.3%. Just getting word that super microcomputer offices in Taiwan have been raided by government authorities, all part of an investigation into the alleged smuggling of NVIDIA chips into China using the company's servers. Shares of Supermicro, they are down by 7%. Comcast shares surging. Comcast plans to spin off its NBCUniversal and Sky into a new publicly traded company. Shares of Comcast today, they are up now by just about 6.1%. Recapping, S&P up 80, up by 1.1%. And for on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcast. Tim and Carol, that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Carol Massar, Tim Stanovic, live here at Bloomberg headquarters in New York City. Now, Bloomberg News was reporting out earlier this week that artificial intelligence is pulling the global labor market in two opposite directions, rewarding companies that use AI to enhance human skills while leaving those who use it merely to cut costs further behind. This is according to a new study that's out from PricewaterhouseCoopers.
It's the PwC 2026 AI Jobs Barometer, and it showed that roles requiring specific AI skills increased almost 8 times faster than the total job market in 2025. Such roles are also seeing higher wage growth, among other things.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something we talk about a lot. And with the jobs report on Thursday, it's certainly something we think about as well. Hey, we should point out, working to raise awareness and take action on what's coming at workers, Eric Holcomb. He's the 51st governor of Indiana. He's co-founder of Raise Us, who, along with Gina Raimondo, who is the 40th U.S. Secretary of Commerce and the 75th governor of Rhode Island, launched Raise Us. It's a nonpartisan national organization. It's partnering with governors, employers, workers, and training organizations to help the American workforce help really kind of them make a successful transition to an AI economy. I would largely argue that we're still trying to figure out what that AI economy looks like. He joins us from Brownsburg, Indiana. Governor Holcomb, great to have you here with Tim and myself. Welcome to Bloomberg again. First up, yep. I want to take a step back if we could, and I'm curious about how you view the scope of AI-related labor problems that your venture is looking to address. What challenges do you think the country is going to be facing, and what challenges do you think the workforce will have to be facing in coming years, and how acute will it get?
Sure. Well, it's great to be with you, Carol and Tim. And with every technological advancement, since we're getting ready to celebrate our 250th birthday, and each and every one of those years we saw innovation and ingenuity and invention that has really propelled not just America, but the world for the good. And we're living in a time right now when the scale and pace of change, which can be very unsettling, lead to uncertainty, lead to thoughts of, will I be left out? Will I be sidelined? Will I still have a place in the workforce? And we are at Raise Us, Gina Raimondo, myself, and a big team of talented folks are out to make sure that the American worker knows that there are pathways that will scale up alongside them as the AI-infused economy and quantum and robots over the coming decade really comes to bear. So it's all about being prepared for the moment right now and for tomorrow, and making sure, as you said, Carol, that we're working with the right stakeholders, the decision makers that can allocate and steer resources, some of which will be ours, some of which will be states, some of which will be the employers, some of which will be the post-secondary education and training providers. It's really getting folks around the table and saying, here are the sectors, here are the skill sets that get you to a meaningful career if you find yourself in a situation that's what you're looking for.
Well, speaking of stakeholders, let's talk a little bit about the organizations and the companies too that are partnering with your organization. They include companies such as Amazon, Anthropic, Microsoft, the OpenAI Foundation. I mean, these are the companies that are bringing us into the AI revolution right now. Would it be fair for some people to view partnerships with those organizations maybe being skeptical to the work that the organization is doing.
A little bit like having the foxes in the hen house.
Well, we operate independently and we're appreciative of everyone's support. I would just say this. I would look at it as if, rewind the tape 50 years, 100 years, pick the time in our history where large-scale investors and inventors, be it electricity or the internet or rubber, you name it, which has changed kind of local economies. We want those folks that are creating that change to be part of the solution. Every sector out there is IT is tech, of course, but so is advanced manufacturing, so is life sciences, so is construction, so is hospitality and tourism. And that means that they're going to remain competitive as they continue to add these technological advancements into their business model. We just want to make sure that the American worker, that we have a people strategy. And to do that, we're going to need resources. So I would look at these supporters as people who want to be part of the solution to the inevitable technological gains that's going to lead to, in my opinion, mass new opportunities for people if we have the right skill sets for those opportunities.
Governor Holcomb, just playing devil's advocate a little bit though, like where are the labor unions as part of like kind of your board or you know what I mean?
Sure.
Those groups representing workers. And I think the point is these guys are companies that have a lot at stake in the AI build and spend. Listen, to be fair, the AI horse has left the barn. And if we don't keep up, the rest of the world will. So I understand their participation, but to kind of balance it out a little bit too, of more organizations that are going to be maybe impacted truly by AI already are.
Well, I would say one of the unique things about Raise Us is our balanced approach, where folks who have partnered with us across the, if you will, political spectrum understand and respect that we are nonpartisan, we are nonprofit, we are for public good. And they want to be a part of that. There's lots of things that, we could disagree about, but we're focused on what we agree about. Mm-hmm. And that's building pathways, whether it's in the trades, whether it's, I call it the 3 C's, the jobs that are going to be created out of AI, this infusion of AI and quantum and robots, jobs that revolve around control and creation and caring. Lots of, unfilled jobs right now. And so be it aviation mechanics or pilots or nurses or teachers. So we have to make sure that there are pathways for each of these different pipelines, and having folks come from all over to help us in this effort really does speak to maybe we have this moment to have collective action really come to bear for a positive result.
I'm glad you brought up some of the historical examples of real technological revolution and technological change. I'm curious, based on the experience that you had as governor of Indiana, because Indiana is a state that went through this, something more recent, and that would be NAFTA and the idea that, we would see widespread job retraining efforts when all this labor to make stuff went overseas, specifically to China. You know better than anyone, that didn't materialize. What did we learn as a country from the failure to retrain workers for that we could then use moving forward?
Amen. You are preaching to the baritone section of the choir, Tim. We learned that we have to build talent pipelines that are directed, that are focused to specific sectors that are in demand. There are a lot of different economic models out there, but supply and demand is time tested and will forever be true. And so we have to simply supply the workforce to meet the business demand. And with this new technology, it's creating more opportunity, more demand from people. And what we learned in the past is if we don't have the right folks at the table collectively and have the right support involved in the whole program, the process of retraining, then it'll all be for naught. And AI, as Carol, you mentioned, of course, our national security is at stake, our very way of life. I'm also very focused, as is Gina, as is Raise Us, on someone's personal economic security. That has so much to do with your place in society, your purpose, the dignity of work. I don't think that that being on the sidelines is a long-term healthy strategy. And so we're trying to get people who have exited the workforce, who are incumbent workers on the job but need to be reskilled or upskilled, or those entry-level folks who are looking at this new economy saying, am I skilled and ready for the careers of today and tomorrow? And what we learned during NAFTA, if we want to onshore, if we want to bring those, not just factories, but business, those supply chains back to America, it will be on the backs and the brains of the American workforce. And that's what we're getting at.
I mean, how serious is this, do you think, Governor Holcomb, if we don't get this right? How serious is this for the U.S. workforce, and how fast will they feel it? I mean, some would say they're feeling it already.
Well, some are. Just ask the people who are.
Right.
And so that makes it an urgent call to action. And so you're going to feel it now. You're going to feel it in 1 year, 3 years. Think about the combination when it's really synchronized and dialed in of AI, quantum, and robots. Now, that calls for more humans. I believe that calls for a whole lot more human talent and labor. But for every person that feels that, that has a ripple effect, not just in their world or their family's world, but their community and their state and ultimately our nation. And as you said, failure is not an option when it comes to what's at stake here.
Hey, listen, just got about 30, 40 seconds. You're a Republican. Gina Raimondo is a Democrat. Good lesson on coming together and working together. How do you think about that against our divided political backdrop? And just quickly.
We're not changing who we are. We've been pals for a number of years, and we've both been very pragmatic and practical about how do we solve problems. And it's been a joy to be able to work with her on the day-to-day basis now. We used to work kind of afar from one another, but it's proof it can be done if you're focused on solving a problem.
Well, we've talked with her, we've talked with you. We look forward to continuing these conversations with both of you going forward, and stay in touch and let us know how the things are going.
Absolutely. Thanks, Carol and Tim.
You bet. Governor Eric Holcomb, of course, the 51st governor of Indiana, co-founder of Raise Us, joining us. Hey, when we come back, we're going to talk about bad credit, because you know what?
What?
There's an app for that. There's an app for everything.
The CEO of Kikoff joins us in just a minute on a day when we're seeing the S&P 500 up more than 1%.
It's 2:40 on Wall Street. We do check markets all day long here at Bloomberg. We have got the NASDAQ 100 index jumping more than 2%, now up 2.2%. Dip buyers snapping up tech names. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all advancing. Dow at a record. S&P 500 index right now, best level of the day. Right to the numbers with the S&P now higher by 82, 74.36 where we stand. That is a gain of 1.1%. Dow Industrials up 367 points. Again, a record up 0.7%. The Dow, by the way, 52,244. NASDAQ Composite Index up 1.9%. NASDAQ 100 Index bears repeating, up by 2.2%. Not all stocks rallying, though. Russell 2000 Index of small cap shares does remain lower, down now by 0.2%. The Bloomberg Mag 7 Index up 2.5%. The VIX below 18, and a 10-year now at 4.37%. Gold is down 1.6%. $4,021 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 2%, $70.63 a barrel. And Bitcoin at $60,200, up by 1.1%. Price of gasoline continues to fall. AAA putting the national average for unleaded gasoline now at $3.86 a gallon. As for the oil majors today, ExxonMobil is higher, up 0.1%. Chevron, ConocoPhillips, they're both lower. Chevron shares down 0.7%. ConocoPhillips now lower by 1%. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcast. I'm Charlie Pellet. Tim and Carol, that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Well, about 17 million Americans are considered credit invisible. That means having little to no credit history. And that no surprise, right, can prevent consumers from reaching first-time milestones, and that includes things like renting an apartment, Tim, or buying a car. We get it.
Yeah, and just last month, Bloomberg News reported on how Intuit Credit Karma is opening its site to Americans who have no credit history. It allows them to take the first steps to building credit. It's also a conversation that's happening at the federal level, especially with regard to mortgages and the way that people are approved for mortgages.
Right. We keep talking about people who can't really access the financial system. Well, someone who's looking to help Americans actually build a credit profile is our next guest. It is Cynthia Chen. She's founder and CEO of Kikoff. She comes to us from San Francisco. Cynthia, great to have you here on Bloomberg Businessweek Daily. First of all, tell us about Kikoff. Launching back, my understanding, in 2018. It seems like it's a little bit of a personal story, too, your own understanding when you came over from Beijing, your days at Columbia. You didn't have a credit history.
No, I did not. I came to the U.S. when I was 17 years old as a first-generation immigrant with no friends or family, no financial resources, and obviously no credit. That's why I realized at a very early age that if I wanted to rent my first apartment after college, buy my first car, or even pass my employer's background check, I would need to build credit.
So then enter Kikoff. It's been a few years since you started the company. Explain exactly how it works, because it has to do with people making on-time payments and those payments being reported to the credit bureaus, which is really the basic way to build credit. How does it work?
Yes. The most important factor in the credit building process is positive payment history. And we deliver exactly that at Kikoff to millions of Americans. We offer Americans multiple ways of building credit, and our flagship product is an unsecured credit that allows the consumer to make a purchase on from our proprietary Kikoff store and then pay off that purchase over a period of 12 months, starting from only $5 per month. And then as they make timely monthly payments, we report the payments to the three major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, thus helping them establish positive payment history. And we also help consumers build credit by reporting their rent payments and utilities payments to the credit bureaus so that they get credit for what they're already paying for.
So essentially, it's a couple of things. As you said, rent payments are tracked, and so they get a track record there, but also the subscription that they pay to you guys, correct?
That is correct.
So how do you know, I guess in particular rent, right? Like these are things that people have to pay, and so their ability to make those payments is a very consistent indicator, important indicator, correct?
Yes, I agree. And data supports that.
So tell us about the people on your platform. Like what happens? Like what kind of credit do they ultimately get, and at what cost do they get that credit?
Our customers usually come to us when their credit score is below 600, because you need at least that in order to get a car loan or a mortgage, or even get approved for a rental apartment. And our customers typically will start at below 600. Mm-hmm. And after having used our products for 12 months and making timely on-time payments each month, on average, they can expect an 86-point increase, which will get them to well north of 650, which is usually enough for getting into some of the mainstream credit products.
Why does a credit building product need to exist? Like why can't the credit bureaus get the real time data when people are spending money and paying off their bills without sort of an intermediary?
Right, or paying rent, right?
Yeah.
That's a great question. The credit bureaus are keeping all the records of payment, but they do not process the payments. And there has to be a technology provider that will track consumers' payment information and then verifies the data and then transform the data into a format that is consumable by the credit bureaus. A credit bureau cannot just take any data without any independent verification, because sometimes the data can be of low quality or just can be inaccurate. So a trusted party needs to take care of that for the consumers so that data reporting is correct. Because if the consumers say rent payment is $2,000 a month, and multiple companies are reporting that data to the credit bureau without the actual checks that verify the validity of such data, a consumer may appear in the credit report as someone who has $8,000 of rent payment, which will really hurt the consumer's ability to get any additional loan because of the perceived rent payment amount. So you do need this aggregator that will verify the consumer's lease, make sure that the correct information is reflected, and also there's no duplication of reporting.
So Cynthia, how do you measure success?
We measure success by looking at how our products have transformed the consumer's financial life. We track the number of mortgages and the number of car loans our consumers have been able to get with our help in credit building. For example, we have helped about 80,000 consumers get their mortgage and realize their dream of ownership. And we have helped consumers get 800,000 of auto loans.
So if you've got, my understanding is 2 million users on the platform, and forgive me, I think I said you guys started in 2018, I believe it's 2019, so forgive me on that. But 2 million users, so what percentage of people on the platform actually ultimately build some credit history? And just got about 40 seconds here.
Everyone will be able to build credit history because we offer a very full suite of products. There are so many ways a consumer can build credit on our platform. So I would say as long as we can verify our identity, you are like 100% sure to build some kind of credit history with the credit bureaus.
And you did say, my understanding is that also that the subscription starts at $5. How much does it go up to?
So we have 3 tiers, $5 per month, $20 per month, and $35 per month.
Okay. And at $35, again, just got about 20 seconds, what do you get?
At $35 per month, you get a lot more features. For example, privacy, monitoring, and protection. If your personal information like SSN is exposed on the internet, we will help you identify that and remove that.
Okay. Very interesting. I'm glad we could check in with you. Cynthia Chen, she's founder and CEO of Kikoff, joining us from San Francisco.
Hey, coming up next on Bloomberg Businessweek Daily, stocks on the move. It's Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily with Carol Masser and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio and Television.
You guys are no fun, man. I'm playing a little bongos.
No. No.
All right. Jeez. Line up, everybody. Live a little. Carol Masser, Tim Stenovec, live here at Bloomberg headquarters in New York City. Taking a look. Holiday shortened. What? What? Right now, 84 points higher on the S&P 500, hovering near our best levels of the day. Same story for the NASDAQ 100, Tim, up 640 points. Good for a gain of 2.2%. S&P up about 1.1%.
We are actually going to see the close of the quarter tomorrow.
Can you believe we're kind of here?
No, I can't believe it. But It's been a volatile quarter, as you reminded us. Quarter to date up 14% on the S&P 500. The NASDAQ up, go ahead and say 19.5%. That's the NASDAQ composite.
Not too shabby.
Dow up 13% over that. A lot can happen between now and tomorrow, but I'm just saying, that's where the scoreboard is right now.
Do you know what the Russell is so far, year to date? Just guess. Come on. Live a little.
13.
If you won't play bongos, at least
higher.
guess what the Russell is.
13% higher.
21% higher. Yeah.
I was talking quarter to date, though.
Oh.
So, I don't know. I know. But year to date, they're actually lower. The major indexes I spoke about.
But not the Russell.
No, the Russell's on a tear.
So if I do HCPIQ, right? I have to check this out.
Okay.
All right, Carol Master along with Tim Stanovic. Let's get to some stocks on the move on this Monday. Joining us to do that, of course, is Bloomberg News cross-asset reporter Denitsa Sikova. She is here with stocks on the move. Where shall we begin?
Let's start with crypto. We're talking about good quarters, but crypto has had a pretty bad quarter, and where else to look at? MicroStrategy, it's actually down 40% year to date, and today is a day of relief. Michael Saylor's company is unveiling a sweeping overhaul of that financial model that has been boosting the company for quite some time. They plan to sell up to $1.25 billion of Bitcoin, which seems crazy. It seems for a very long time that the company was a big holder. They kept buying. Clearly, that model is changing, and there is a lot of pressure. They established 2 repurchase programs of their own shares, both common and preferred shares, up to $1 billion each. The motto is they're gonna sell cryptocurrencies, buy back securities, and preserve liquidity for the company. Clearly, a model that works in pretty tough times. But shares are up 13% today.
I think the concern that people have is if you have somebody like Michael Saylor, who is the epitome of the Bitcoin faithful, starting to liquidate some of the Bitcoin, and these guys were, original hodlers.
Yeah.
Then what does it mean about the overall attitude around the cryptocurrency?
And you can see it in sentiment. You can see it in Bitcoin prices. Of course, a big part of the prolonged crypto winter was part of the fact that MicroStrategy is selling, and a lot of the, even like meme cryptocurrencies, a lot of the ETFs around it, like the whole universe of complex speculative bets around crypto is sinking. It's not just strategy. It's not just Bitcoin.
I mean, so goes Bitcoin, so goes strategy, right?
Strategy.
I mean, it's as simple as that, right? Because if you just take a look at what its balance sheet is. So, when it's doing really well, yay, but when it's not, it's a pretty clear story and cause and effect, if you will. All right, let's go on over to another company and stock that is soaring today.
Very different story. Comcast plans to spin off NBCUniversal and Sky. Of course, that comes after a decade. The company has been kind of struggling to show that a cable and media conglomerate is working. But today we saw quite the reaction in earlier trading. It surged as much as 17%. Now it's up about 6%. The ticker we're looking at is CMC. SA, they of course have common shares and preferred shares. The new company, NBCUniversal, will hold the theme parks division, Universal Film, NBC Telemundo, and Peacock streaming services, as well as in Europe they have Sky.
Fun and games.
Yeah, while Comcast will retain the company cable TV, broadband, and wireless. So it's splitting. It's really interesting. The company will keep a stake of up to 20% in NBCUniversal for as much as 12 months. Of course, a lot can change in the meantime, but clearly the direction of travel is that cable viewership is going down and they're separating the businesses.
I mean, it's pretty wild if you've been following this story over the last 15 years or so. I mean, this was such a big deal.
Yeah.
When they bought those assets, and now, I mean, the unbundling of it, the unraveling of it it just says so much about where we are in today's media ecosystem.
There was also a period go all the way back to General Electric, right? And it was kind of a star too of their universe, or one of the aspects where you were making a lot of money off of cable. It's so interesting. This past weekend, we were like, is it time to just get rid of cable completely and go to like YouTube TV? And even
listen,
I know
we pay so much more than we would pay if we just had cable for all of these streaming services.
Give me back the bundle.
They are getting very good at making it so you can't actually share these passwords.
Yes, they're getting very good. I used to share a lot. It's much harder.
Real quickly, 25 seconds on Roblox.
Roblox shares are up 15%. We had an upgrade from a rating. It's from neutral to buy. That company has been under so much pressure, down 41% today. Some optimism. They said 2027 bookings come in 5% ahead consensus. That company has a lot of lawsuits and issues going on. So definitely pretty dark topics happening there. And the company is having a tough year and a good day today.
All right, some stocks on the move, no doubt about it. Denitsa, thank you so much. Check out our Stock Movers podcast, 5-minute episodes of the big winners and losers in the stock market. Find it on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts.